Eric Rollo joining Brokers and Brews out of Florida. First, before we get too into introductions, what brew did you bring?
So I brought with me this evening Turtle Swamp. This is all ears golden ale. So for those who aren't from Boston, we have Sam Adams right up the street from where I live. About a week and a half ago, it was actually on Easter. My wife and I, it was the first nice day we had here in quite some time. So we walked up to Turtle Swamp and they're doing curbside pickup, contactless pickup. So we ordered online. We were able to go pick up 3 4 packs, and they're a fantastic local brewer. Generally, they have a great patio with games and all that stuff, food trucks and all of that. But right now, they're just doing pickup, and we're trying to support our local brewers who don't distribute nationwide. So this is Turtle Swamp, all ears.
Awesome, and thanks for rolling with it because I said Florida for some godforsaken reason, and I knew you're not in Florida. And
Well, I'm here in Boston.
ironically, yeah, that's right. Ironically, I brought a local brewery maker as well, Atwater Brewery. They make a lot of beers. This one's actually one of my wife's favorites, but it's good. It's 75 today, so it's like it's summer, and
You're
so it's called
lucky.
Wango. It's got a little mango wheat ale thing going on. It's really good. So
You're lucky if it's 75 there, 70 there, because here, I mean, we woke up Monday morning and it was like, again, and it was just pouring rain and 40 and depressing. Today it's a little bit sunnier, but cheers, Joe. Thanks for having me on.
yes, cheers to you. Thank you for
Virtual
joining.
cheers.
And it's funny. So I did talk to someone from Florida yesterday, and the difference in weather. And we're not here to talk weather, but I certainly can appreciate the East Coast because Midwest is not awesome, but it's not terrible when it comes to weather. We have beautiful seasons. It's just we don't know how long they're going to last. Like we could be still in winter for all I know, or it might actually be spring here at the end of April. So it's hard to say.
Yeah, it's supposed to be spring here, but as one of my neighbors put it, we're just hoping it doesn't do like the whole winter to summer thing like that, like it did
Right.
last year, where one day it was 45 and the next day it was 80, and then it was just like hot and humid for the rest of the year. But we'll see what happens. I'm just hoping for some nicer weather so we can get outside a little bit with
Yeah.
our stay-at-home order. So.
Yeah, for sure. So tell us a little bit. Are you you're all self-employed, but I mean, are you by yourself? You're part of a team. You're the team leader. You told me you're recording like 60 videos for somebody, so I'm
Yeah.
assuming there's a team involved. Um, you know, I don't need to know all your production, but obviously, like something that kind of lets us know a little bit about what your average, sales might look like, things like that. Let us get to know a little bit about
Yeah,
Eric.
yeah, so I work for William Raveis Real Estate, which is the largest family-owned real estate company in the Northeast, and now we've expanded to Florida. I have a team of 5 myself out of our Boston office here in the Back Bay, and we're the top producing team there. We at one point were doing around 42 million a year, and now we're a little bit lower. But our big thing right now, especially in these times, is just trying to provide an excellence in service and trying to be community ambassadors. So that's been our big focus. And you mentioned 60 bomb bomb videos that we recorded the other day. I recorded 60 videos and I was sitting in the same chair. There was multiple outfits because it took me a couple days because this gets uncomfortable after a while. But
Sure.
for our sellers right now, it's a lot of them don't want to go on our MLS because we're still accruing days on market. So for them, it's like, okay, how can we get it out there in a different way? So we jumped on and started recording videos and sending it to all of our partner offices in those markets, and then to the top 25 agents in that zip code.
Okay.
And from that, I mean, the specific listing that you're talking about, I'm actually going up there and showing it to 3 or 4 people tomorrow evening based off of those initial videos and our initial like market launch, which generally this would be like a big open house weekend. We're not doing open houses here in Massachusetts right now. So everything's private. Everything is super structured. But it's something that I think sets us apart from the competitors in our market, at least. And we're trying to make the most of the technology and the tools that we have for me and my team.
And now you said in the Back Bay. and I've been to Boston a couple times, but to be honest, we were actually in Worcester, not in Boston. And you know, I came actually get this good for my clients. I wasn't in real estate, but we took our two of our vendor clients, whatever you want to call them, to the. We were like, well, we got to buy some Red Sox tickets and go, and it just happened to be Sox Yankees. So
Oh God.
and my boss at the time, he was from Long Island, so it was awesome because we had both sides, and the craziness and all that good stuff. So we had a great experience to go to that game. But that's my only real Boston experience, so to speak. The rest has been the outskirts. What is the Back Bay? Tell us, because like I'm in Michigan, and there's a few markets where you really are super hyper local. You only go a mile or two, or you talk about from here to here, something like that. But for the most part, people just say like, I want a city or these three cities, or maybe even a school district. When they start getting like kind of specific, a lot of times people are very open to a lot of areas here, but I don't feel like that's the case across the country, and especially in big market areas. So tell us more, like, what does that mean, Back Bay and some of the other areas around you?
So I mean, I grew up about what 15, 20 miles maybe west of the city in a small suburb. Well, it's not small suburb, a large suburb called Framingham, just west of the city. My wife grew up about 10 miles north in Burlington. So that's to give you an extent of how small Boston is. That's what it is. I mean, I go out to visit my mom and it takes me 35 minutes, and that's a long ride for me.
Sure.
Where we are in the city, if you think about it in terms of like New York's boroughs or things like that, it's every neighborhood is very different. You can walk from neighborhood to neighborhood. So when I say Back Bay, that if someone's envisioning downtown Boston, the Public Garden and Boston Common, that's kind of the epicenter, and Back Bay is just west of that, and that leads out towards Fenway. So Fenway Park. I live in a neighborhood called Jamaica Plain, which I have a Boston address, but I live 15 minutes from my office by car, or probably about 25, 30 minutes by train to get downtown. So we're a very small city, but every neighborhood's super diverse. So when you're talking about someone that's looking in our area, someone will say, okay, I want an urban atmosphere. Okay, so what do you want with that? Do you want to be able to walk to everything, to get clothes, to get, you know, I don't know, groceries and to your bars and restaurants? That's all great. Like Back Bay would be perfect for everything. But
Hmm.
when I lived in the Back Bay, I felt like a tourist in my own neighborhood. In Jamaica Plain, we have a ton of green space. It feels suburban. And we have a bunch of like really good local bars and restaurants, but we have the easy access to transit to be able to jump on a train or jump on a bus and get downtown. So my wife and I, we love going to Bruins and Red Sox games. We can get to either of those within 25, 30 minutes and not have to touch a steering wheel, which is awesome. We either
Right.
jump in an Uber, jump into a well, when they're actually playing,
Right.
jump on a train or jump on a bus.
I was just going to say to you, are you
So
jumping in a train or are you taking your own transportation? But you
no,
answered
I mean,
that.
generally it's here. I mean, people are really, really transit oriented, and that's what it really comes down to in terms of what folks are looking at in our markets. It's okay if you're transit oriented. It's super easy sell. What we've been finding, and I spoke on a panel with Boston Magazine, just not even a year ago, talking about millennials going outside the city because the city here has gotten more and more expensive with all the industry coming here. So a lot of millennials have been going to areas where we still have transit, so commuter rail. So it's different than our like the T.
Hmm.
The T is like the local subway lines. The commuter rail goes out a little bit further. It goes back out to my hometown. About 45 minutes or an hour away.
Okay.
So we've seen millennials go there, and what we've been talking about is folks that are going to those areas that have a basis of just that community feel that you would get in an area like downtown Boston. You can walk to your favorite restaurant, you can walk to your bars, you can walk to a bookshop, a cafe, and you can walk to a brewery in most of the places that our millennials are going to. So areas north, south, and west of the city have become more and more popular with their younger populations in terms of buying.
Yeah. Well, that's something we've seen in Detroit itself. I'm about 35 minutes like west of Detroit proper.
Okay.
And I'm in between Detroit and Ann Arbor, and I think a lot of people know Ann Arbor. I happen to be wearing a Michigan hat tonight, but whatever. And I think so if I travel,
I still like you, even though what Tom Brady did to me and my friends and family.
well, uh, we certainly wouldn't have had it that way ourselves. A lot of us. So the Lions, they're not that good of a football team. I'm not sure if you know that, but
But they have Matt Patricia.
true. Anyways, and so, but they haven't been very good. So a lot of Detroit Lions fans, we call it a team B. We adopt another team, and so naturally, I think a lot of people adopted the Patriots because of Tom Brady and Michigan's connection. And then, of course, really when he first got started, there were a couple other Michigan players on the team, so you really felt like there was a connection there. And then, other people maybe hated him for the same reason or whatever, right? But what I was going is that where I'm at, I could say if I came to visit, you and someone said, "Where are you from?" I could either say Detroit or Ann Arbor, and both would be relevant, and yet neither would be accurate because they're two totally different cities. They're very, I mean, where I live, we're a town of like 30,000. It's become very suburban lately, but it used to be all equestrian. In fact, my subdivision's named after horse, stuff. Every street in my sub is horses, and actually the two subs adjacent to me are also horse related, and a few others are also, so that's just the town. And it's become a little bit more city like, if you will. And then there's that argument between those two, but that's my little town. But like Ann Arbor is more like every other major city where there's a lot of commuting by bus, by bike. Believe it or not, I think they ranked like 23rd in like walking or bicycle transportation in the country,
Oh
even
wow.
including our terrible winters. Um, Detroit, we have some transit options, but being the motor city, they never really took off. So even now, there's a little bit of like rail in the street and above ground, and they're trying to do a little bit more, but it's still yet to really explode. And I mean, the monorail that's above ground has been there for 30 years, maybe, at least 25 years. And yet it's never really packed except maybe a huge event, but even then. So very different. But Detroit, like you said, as far as the walking, the people that are moving there, and it's really exploded. The people that move to Detroit are generally a younger generation or a millennial generation. Unfortunately, they're probably a group of folks, regardless of age, that do not have kids in school because the Detroit public school system just isn't ranked that well. So unless they're sending them to private schools, then they're probably not moving there for the schools. They're moving there for all the other things, like you said. And we've really become a boom town for bars, restaurants, pop-up shops, all these cool little things that we didn't have before. So it's really exciting for myself, who actually grew up in Detroit, to see, because when I moved away, at the time that I moved away at 22, I was like, Detroit's my home, Detroit's my home. And then I just kept seeing worse and worse things happening to where it's like, I'm so glad I don't have to say Detroit's my home.
Oh
you know,
gosh.
so now it's kind of made a turnaround, and you're maybe happier to and not as embarrassed to say, Detroit, as maybe you used to be, so those are kind of like our markets. But like around here in my MLS, and we only have one in this huge area. If you looked at a map and you said Detroit all the way out to Flint, to some other cities, one MLS basically. Um, you know, our average price points in the 200,000 range. There's plenty that are above and plenty that are below, but you'd find a house for 220 to 250 in many cities around. I'm guessing that's not the case for you.
It's not the case for us. I mean, we have a handful of MLSs nearby. So we have the Cape and Islands. The Cape has their own MLS. The islands you use a service called Link, and then there's a Western Mass MLS. But most of Massachusetts uses the same MLS. My team's average sale price is just under 700,000. Uh, but that being said, I was with a first time home buyer yesterday. Then we were looking at something that was listed at 284. So it does run the gamut. We have folks that are looking for one bedroom condos just north of the city that might be 284, but we have folks that have sold with our team or bought with our team for upwards of 4 or 5 million. So we really do run the gamut because neighborhood by neighborhood, even, and like anecdotally, I can say my wife and I, we lived closer to downtown before when she was working at Northeastern University. And when we bought our first place, we were like, okay, well, we can get this for this price here, but we can get twice as much for this price over here. And we jumped on this opportunity, and we're glad we did. I mean, we've gained a whole bunch of equity, even despite the circumstances. I'm confident if I press go on my listing today for my own house, that we would walk away really happy with what we had. So I'm very fortunate to be in a market that continues to evolve and continues to emerge based on education, medicine, and the number of jobs that are coming to our area. I'm very blessed to be in the Boston market right now.
Are there a lot of non-medical jobs? Because even the reason I was there, when I said I was there 2 times, we were in document storage, and so we were partnered with a company who had the contract for another major company, except that company, their client, had a huge presence in Michigan, too big to say overnight stuff back and forth. They needed an actual warehouse and someone to deliver twice a day. And so that was us. We did the same thing. We used the same software, whatever. And but when we came out, I mean, these warehouses were full of medical records. I mean, that was their bread and butter. There was plenty of other businesses. There were 1,000 clients. Only 100 of them were medical and 100 were lawyer, and the rest were everybody else, except 6 of 7 warehouses were medical and legal. So like, what are the businesses that are maybe coming out or opening up or expanding in your marketplace up through now? Maybe that'll change, but excluding present day, what's been the big thing?
Yeah, I mean, for us, obviously, medicine and education are number one and two, from my experience, at least, in terms of working with people moving to and from. From there, a lot of biotech. So we have a lot of biotech and pharma. That's mostly in the Cambridge area and a little bit north of the city where there's lab space. And then aside from that, we have Amazon has taken some space here, but not as much as in Washington and some other areas. And GE had taken some space and now has kind of scaled that back. But we have a lot of tech and just innovation happening here in this area. The other big thing that we have, and folks might not be aware of this, is a lot of film. So every summer, it's a nightmare parking around my office because everything around the Boston Common and the Boston Public Garden is shut down for filming. So we have a lot of just Hollywood industry and filming going on here. If you have watched Netflix, and what's the guy's name? Not what's the guy's name? Mark Wahlberg was in it.
Never heard of them.
Mark Wahlberg, but I'm blanking. I just watched it this weekend too. Spencer.
Okay.
Spencer Confidential. That movie was filmed all around here. We were watching it this weekend, and I was like, I know that place. I know that place. This makes sense. So it was really cool to see that. It brought me back to the days of The Departed or The Town when they depicted Boston in this really, really ominous way. But it's not that way at all. You can come here and feel okay.
Yeah. Well, it's funny. I mean, like, I don't feel that our two cities are the same, but there's these similarities that we're finding right now. Detroit has a terrible rap, and some of it might be deserved. Some of it is deserved. Okay, there's some bad things that have happened. There's some bad things that probably happened last week. But
there's
overall,
bad things that happen in any urban market.
Exactly.
Any place where there's a lot of people packed into one place, there's going to be bad things that happen.
Correct. It's like if you bring 100,000 people in every single night for something, then there's percentage wise, if even a half of a percent is bad, that's a lot of people, you know. So so you're right. And but by all means, in fact, I had one of the guys from that warehouse. He stayed with us for a couple of months for a project, and he loved, going into Detroit and going in to see things, and driving around and stuff. So there's definitely plenty to see, plenty to do. So whatever you see on the news, sure, it's true, it's on the news, but there's a lot more and it's a lot better. So
For sure.
now, obviously, one of my inspirations, if you will, for kind of kicking up the series was just knowing that people's businesses are really being impacted right now. And us both being in real estate, we're impacted in a few ways. Personally, and anyone who's actually listening to every single one of these is probably like, okay, Joe, we know you're shut down. You can't do real estate except for from your home. We get it. But everyone that I talk to doesn't know that. So I have to kind of say it every time.
Right.
In Michigan, we were not considered an essential employee. So as of right now, through May 15th, the only way I can work is from my computer. And we're making it happen. We're getting offers in, we're getting deals done, we're helping clients. It's not ideal, but we're making it happen. But we also have a lot of people on the sidelines waiting for the ability to have semi-normal activity, because it's certainly going to be a different market when it happens. What's happening is Boston the same as Massachusetts, first of all, as far as like orders and rules, and then secondly, like what's been going on over the last 3 to 6 weeks?
So I am essential, as hard as that is to
Congratulations.
believe. No, we have been considered essential. It took a little while to figure out what that looked like, because a lot of the other, aspects of real estate were essential. And then about 2 or 3 days later, they came back and said, okay, real estate as a whole is essential, which, um, you know, thank you to the Mass Association of Realtors and Greater Boston Association for fighting for us on those fronts.
But can I stop you real quick? Like,
Yeah.
just, so, so what did you do for those few days? Like, I'm sure there were some people that didn't care, but as a general consensus, what did you slash realtors do for 72 hours? Whatever it was, when you were trying to figure out, can you work?
The first 24 hours was just probably fear, and like, okay, what's going to happen? And then it turned into, okay, how do we pivot? Like, how do we shift this and lean into this problem and make it into something that we can work with and still move forward with our business? Because my team in particular, we still had people that needed to sell and needed to buy.
Mhm.
Like, it wasn't a question of like, oh, like, yeah, I could move and I want to be in this new place. It was like, I need to sell this place for whatever reason, or I need to buy this place for whatever reason. So how do we figure that out? We were very fortunate that we'd been doing a lot of the, I don't want to say like we were ahead of the game with like virtual showings or anything like that, but we had been doing 3D tours. We always had a property specific website. We had my team had experience with going forward with buyers and sellers and tenants, and showing them places via FaceTime or Zoom, like those types of things. So it wasn't it was a speed bump for us rather than a roadblock, if that makes sense.
Absolutely.
So we were really lucky in that regard. But once we were named essential, I mean, Massachusetts, the week before we went on stay at home, we had 2 new listings come on. And I remember one of my agents said to me, like, I don't agree with what you're doing. And I said, what do you mean? And what he didn't agree with is, I said, we're no longer doing traditional open houses because it's not safe for our sellers or our buyers. We are going to have a plan going into every single showing, every single listing, every single buyer appointment. And this is how we're going to structure it. And everything was structured and systemized. And about a week later, the state came down and said, hey, we're done. Like, we're not allowing public open houses anymore. You can't have more than 10 people in the same space at the same time. And since then, other cities and towns around us, so you asked about Boston in particular, like, I can still work in Boston. Like, I have to wear a mask and I have to practice social distancing, which I would tell anyone to do.
Sure.
But you go 5 miles north of the city, and I'm not allowed to show a place. It's like a different town. Every town has different rules. So for my team, it's knowing what towns have what rules, following them, and then also just giving an abundance of clarity to our buyers and sellers to make sure that they know what's going on in these strange times. I mean, a lot of we have a lot of folks in our market that say, "Hey, it's business as usual," and we're like, "No, no, no, it's business as unusual, and here's why." And
Yeah.
we try to just lay that out for people.
Yeah. No, it's funny. I kind of forgot about the fact that before we had a stay-at-home order, we canceled our schools and stuff, and so there was no stay-at-home order, but there were a lot of people that were going to be home,
Right,
because there was there was no place to take your kids. I mean, daycares were open, but my kids are 10 and 7. They're not going to a daycare, let alone if your kid is maybe 12 and say 8. 12-year-old's probably not quite ready to handle the 8-year-old. I don't know that it's even legal to leave them at home. So there was going to be a parent at home. And
right.
I remember that weekend seeing open houses canceling and open houses coming on market. And there was somebody that I knew, liked, and trusted. So I said, "Hey, you're doing an open house. I'm curious, like, what are you doing?" And they're like, "Oh, we're going to be real safe about it." I said, "Oh, really? Like how? Like, what are you doing?" And they said, "Well, we're going to uh, only allow 2 people in at a time. Um, they have to remove shoes, not even shoe covers. Like they had all these little things. I don't remember all the details." And I said, "Okay, cool," because I was seeing a lot of immediately, like a lot of complaints, basically from realtors saying, "I can't have my open house. I need to have my open house," and what have you. And trust me, I'm a big open house advocate. Um, I believe that they help the seller. They certainly can help the realtor. I think first and foremost, they help the seller. I think that if I can advertise an open house and get 20 groups of people through, then we're probably going to sell that weekend. Whereas without an open house, those 20 groups, especially the folks that weren't planning on necessarily buying, but they thought they would just stop in, those people put in offers sometimes, and that doesn't happen without an open house. Okay, now we don't have that. That's fine, right? Like you said, like I would advocate a lot of these changes anyways, but it really was impactful. And then of course the stay at home came, and they said it made it really simple. In fact, showing time isn't even open for us right now. Like you can't even schedule
Wow.
inspections. Although we can do inspections, I can't even schedule them. I have to just, old school, call you up and say,
Right.
"Hey, Eric, can my inspector come, Tuesday at 3?" That type of thing. So it's definitely been, interesting, but we've made do. Sounds like, like you said, it. I think it was perfect. It was a speed bump, not a roadblock. We've got maybe like 2 or 3 speed bumps in a row, so we got to stay slow, but we still don't have a roadblock. We still are able to get things done.
No, for sure. And I mean, that's us too. And the perfect example is, my wife's cousins, they put something under agreement that they had seen prior to all of this. And then, the seller came back to us and said, "Hey, like, we'd like to entertain your offer at this point." And we ended up putting them under agreement, and they said, "Okay, well, we need to sell to buy this. So how do we do that?" And for me, it's like they have a toddler at home. She works in the medical field, so it's trying to figure out what makes sense for everyone. So we've tried to give like I say this all the time: confidence through clarity. And this is something my business coach tells me all the time. My business coach Wayne, he says, like, you need to lead with clarity, and that inspires confidence. So we tell everyone, okay, here's what's going to happen. In this case, we've developed a document that says, okay, here's why we need these precautions in place. Here's why you need these precautions in place, and here's what to expect at a showing. So we have one page that says all that. So you're going to wear a mask, you're going to wear gloves, you're going to wear booties. But before you even get through the door, you're going to do the virtual walkthrough through the 3D tour, and you're going to provide us with a pre-approval within the last 48 hours.
Wow.
A lot of people are like, "Wait, what's the deal with the 48 hours? Like, pre-approvals are good for as long as the credit score is good for." And in this market, like, that's not true anymore, right? So, I mean, you'd agree with that, Joe. It's
Yeah.
not true anymore because lenders are changing requirements on a week to week, if not a day to day basis. They're saying, okay, like this week, someone with the 680 qualifies. Next week, it needs to be 720.
Yeah.
So we're asking for folks to submit something within 48 hours of the showing request that says, I'm qualified to buy this home. Once we have all that, that's when we're scheduling showings. And even then, we're blocking showings so that we can make sure the place is sanitized. Once people come through, we wipe down all the knobs and pulls, all the doors, windows, like anything people would want to open, we make sure are open before they come in.
Yep.
And then we let the next party through. So we're trying to be as safe as we can, just to inspire confidence. But again, there's no guarantee with any of this. Like I'm not a professional sanitizer. I can only do the best that I can do to make sure that people are safe and that the sellers are safe with their kid at home. You know what I mean?
Yeah. No, that's the tricky part is it's hard to start having some of these conversations without being political. It's hard to have some of these conversations when even medical experts aren't 100% agreeing on certain things. Even treatment, right? I mean, you've got one doctor, legit doctor, comes on and says, this is what you should do. And another one that comes on and says, that's the most asinine thing I've ever heard. They're both doctors treating patients. So how are we supposed to know what the best thing to do? So I think, what you said is 100% accurate. And I know
We're
that,
just trying to be as safe as possible and make sure that people feel comfortable. I mean, in all honesty, Boston, we were just told yesterday that we had kind of plateaued.
yeah,
We were supposed to be like the deadline was May 4th, and they've extended that to May 18th. So we're in a position where we know that we're hopefully on the downward, I don't know, trend, but at the same time, we want to continue that trend. I don't want to be a part of changing that for our city or our state. So
yeah, that's exactly right. And that was my point from the get go when people were saying that we shouldn't be shut down. And I thought, I don't know if you're paying attention to the numbers, but I don't know why you think we should be showing houses and especially having open houses right now. Now, personally, even though I felt that way, I also felt after the initial 3 weeks, some things could have been made available for us to help our clients more than we're doing now. And they weren't. So, it's like I agreed and I disagreed. And I think that's
mhm.
okay. At the same time, it's 5 weeks, it's 6 weeks, it's 7 weeks. I mean, as long as it's not years or maybe months, most people will be okay. And in fact,
It's funny because it's a long time because we're sitting at home. You know what I mean? It's a really long time because we're just sitting at home, and it feels much longer.
right.
But what I keep telling myself is that it's only going to get longer if we don't do what we need to do to make this better.
Yeah.
And that's just in the back of my mind every day. And I'm out like showing places, but at the same time, I'm doing my best to distance, and other people are looking at me, and I'm like, I'm not. If you don't have a face covering, like I'm not showing this property to you. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
And people look at me like I'm nuts, and I'm like, no, like this is part, like this was part of the deal.
Yep.
We have it. That's why we try to be so clear going into it, so that it's a clear process throughout everything.
My guess is because we've been shut down for a period of time as real estate professionals, they're going to give us our own guidelines. I don't think that when they say we can go back to work, that we're just going to be allowed to go back and do what we think is best. I think that the state will say real estate's essential as long as you do these checklist of items. And
So I was talking on a panel earlier today. I'm sorry to interrupt, but
very good.
someone was like, they were going on and on about, oh yeah, like everything's going to be great when everything gets back to normal. And I said, I think there's there's this fallacy that it's just going to go and everything's going to go back to normal.
Yeah,
And that's not going to be what happens. I mean, I'm very fortunate to be in a state where I'm considered essential, but regardless of my state, your state, any other state, it's not going to be normal again anytime soon. So we need to adapt, and we need to be working for our clients, buyers and sellers, to make things work for them and to help them achieve their goals. And again, it's just trying to figure out what makes most sense for our clients and how we can help them adapt to this evolving situation, because they're leaning on us and we need to lean into the problem. You know what I mean?
Yeah. So how has it impacted like sales or business? I'm sure that there's still some places that just fly off the shelves. Like you said, you're confident if you listed your own home, it would sell appropriately. But what has been an impact, or has there been an impact by these changes with either lack of showings or virtual showings or what have you?
I think what's funny is when I first went into it, I was like, we have to hold everything off market. We're going to do everything. And like, because we have a private MLS, so we can show things off market as long as we have a disclosure signed by the seller. So I'm saying, okay, Facebook, Instagram, and we've had great success with that. But as soon as we put stuff on MLS, it starts to fly. Even if we have it on Top Agent Network before that, we have it on MLS, it starts to fly. And I think that's the fallacy is that folks say, "Oh, well, it's not going to sell right now because people aren't looking." This is for buyers. This is the perfect time to look because it's no longer the statistical like you list something on a Wednesday or a Thursday and you have open houses Saturday, Sunday, and it's under agreement by Monday or Tuesday, which was how our market was working. Now it's you list whenever you want because everyone's home all the
Yeah.
time.
Yeah.
There's no boss looking over their shoulder. Um, I, I would say, I mean, going in like Q1 was normal for us. We had a really weird winter, as I'm sure you might have too up there. We didn't really have a winter.
No.
So our real estate just continued to roll, and the statistics are misleading because you look at what's closed year over year from last month or this month, a comparison to last year. It doesn't make much sense because we're way up, but now everything's kind of like pump the brakes a little bit.
Hmm.
Um, you know, I, I think we're still busy, but we're selectively busy. I think people that say like I'm so busy last year were busy doing showings. Now the people that are saying I'm so busy are the people actually doing business and closing deals. I do think that we will see, and I was licensed back in '07, '08, so I saw kind of some people leave the market.
Yep.
I think we will see some folks leave the market who are in our industry because it's not that there's no like rocket booster on their business anymore.
Yeah. Well,
You
you read
have to have the infrastructure. You know what I mean?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah. That was exactly what I was going to say. Is do you think we'll see less realtors by the end of the year because
Mhm.
uh, it's not this job's not easy anyways.
You're an entrepreneur. You're running your own business. I mean, it's the same. Like I equate myself to the guy across the street that runs the bodega. He shows up there every day at 5:30, 6 a.m., opens the shop. Like he's the one doing that. He's doing the books. He's doing the inventory. That's what you and I do every day, Joe.
Yep. And there's people skills, there's all that, and you have to
Right.
get the clients. People might be calling you, but it's because of all the things that you put into play for them to call you. And if you want to grow your business, you're either finding a way to get more people calling you or you're calling people.
Right.
So if you come in day one with a huge sphere of influence, family, friends that want to use you, you still have to bust your butt to make it. The pay ultimately can be great. And you could do one deal and make a boatload of money, possibly. Not always. And but there's so many things that come with the pay, and the fact that you and I know if your commission was $15,000, the odds of you putting into your checking account $15,000 are pretty low.
Zero.
there's there are other fees that are involved in the business. There's other fees that belong to other associations and brokers and what have you. And then of course the fact that we don't have our taxes taken out unless you're not planning, you need to throw a chunk of that 15,000 right into the bank account so that a separate bank account so that you have tax money to pay hopefully quarterly but at least yearly. So the money looks great, but really, I mean, unless you're a very busy agent doing certain, I would say 5 to 7 million is kind of like a baseline. to really make a good living, um, it's going to be a struggle.
I
And
mean, take the dollar bill and just rip it in thirds is the easiest way to put it, right?
yeah,
And like a third goes to the government, a third goes to the business, and maybe a third comes back to you.
right.
And then that's divided up with your family, your kids, like all that stuff. So
Well, and there's obviously times where you guys are doing a little bit different volume than I'm doing, but let's just say there's a month where you had 5 closings pending and only one happens. Now that
mhm,
means the next month probably is a really good one because 4 of those 5 might be in the next month, but not always.
hopefully.
One of them might have completely blown up. One of them might be back in the fall. Two of them might happen the following month, and then the one that does. So people don't factor that in because whatever our pay is not guaranteed. It doesn't happen until it closes, and everything that comes along the way in between can impact it. You know, so I would guess, like you said, I would agree with you that there are definitely going to be some agents that just can't survive, that type of marketplace because it's been really good and it's going to be good, but it's going to be good in a whole new different world and not everybody can adapt. We know that.
I mean, I think back to folks that I've trained. I used to handle the training for our company and seeing how things went during their training, and everything was like, everything's great. Like, what, close, 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 close. And like they were all closing their first 3 deals, no problem. But there was, I mean, we gave them the basis of support, but it was just, okay, like this is all just going to happen. And it doesn't all just happen. You have to actually work for it. It is a business, right? It's a small business and you have to work for it. So
Yeah. But it's a fun business,
it is. It's such
Um,
a fun business.
it's fun.
And it's fun because I get to talk to people like you all the time with Michigan hats on, Tom Brady.
If we talk again, I'll wear my Brady jersey.
You should.
I have an authentic Brady jersey. Um, anyways, but no, it's fun because like I have a guy who I met a couple of years ago. We only looked at a handful of properties, but things just didn't go well. He's a VA guy, and the VA, they get crapped on when offers come in because there's like one extra inspection, which can be difficult. But for the most part, most sellers today have their homes ready to go.
And
So
it doesn't even have to be an extra inspection. You just have to have the right inspector, at least in our market.
yeah, well, so we have there's been some weird things that have happened at times,
Okay.
but they've also had, um, for the most part, they get things done. They'll point out some. I know of a time where um, the house got flagged because they had what you call door handles too high. The door handles were too high, so they weren't deemed safe. And that was pretty strange, but that was a one-off scenario. You know, for the most part, the VA is not that bad. It's not hard to close, but they really get dumped on when there's 10 offers. Everybody wants the other offer. And this guy is finally under contract. And I think he's going to love the house. He'll find out more tomorrow. And it's so like joyful to help him finally, get this thing done. I mean, we're not done, but you know what I mean. And so it's a great job. I'm so glad to be in it, to be a part of it, to be able to do these things. Um, and then of course the pay can certainly help, right? I mean,
For sure.
you can
No,
get
and I mean with what you're saying, I mean, even right now, there's a lot of folks that have a lot of doubt in what's going on. Like, hey, my girlfriend and I, my fiance and I, my new wife and I want to buy a new home, and they feel stuck. We're not going to be able to do that right now. But the most joyous thing that I've had had lately, um, has been a couple like that who have said like, hey, we were stuck. We didn't think we'd be able to do this, and all of a sudden it's like, oh well, we were able to accomplish this, and you're going to list our house, and you're going to find us a buyer despite what's going on in our market. And it's being that guide that's like kind of driving me and my team during all this.
yeah. No, it's I could probably we could talk, I'm sure, for hours as to like why we got into the business, why we love the business, all those types of things. Um, I on one of the other shows, Becky Alley, she had a story about a seller who had an issue or a buyer who had an issue, and ultimately the seller helped pay for the buyer's hotel room because that's where they had to live for a while. They just kind of came together, and this was after the buyer's issue could have impacted the seller's sale. So it's great when you see those like feel good stories, and they're not all that way, right? There's certainly nightmares. There's certainly times where you think, why am I in this industry? But for the most
For
part,
sure.
they're
Yeah.
good stories. Um, I found obviously one of the benefits of being home more is being home more, right? Like whether it's some family stuff, whether it's finally kicking back and realizing that you could do something that you always said you couldn't do because you didn't have the time. Have you had some experiences like that?
I mean, I was joking earlier with my coach and on another call that this has been a time where I've realized I've put a lot of stuff on the back burner that could have really benefited myself, my team, my clients, and now that's coming to fruition. And it's almost as if myself as an agent, I'd gotten complacent. I said, okay, we're already ahead of the game, so we can take our foot off the gas. And this has made me put my foot back on the gas, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So where you're looking at me now is I'm in my second bedroom. My wife and I affectionately call it the studio now. Um, but this is where we're doing bomb videos. You mentioned, the 60 videos we did the other day. We're like going from here to our kitchen back and forth, all over the place. And once it gets nicer, hopefully outside, but trying to take advantage of things like video that we hadn't done in the past and really doubling down on our community impact. So those folks that are or aren't open, reaching out to them and saying, hey, how can we help you?
Mhm.
And trying to highlight them and get them on similar conversations to what you and I are having. About an hour and a half before you and I jumped on, I was on with a local interior designer, and she's not essential personnel. But Laura Pierce from Keeler and Company, she was able to come on with me and talk to me about how she's still helping clients with virtual consultations.
Yeah.
And all the trades that she works with are essential. So she's able to give folks, hey, like, this is what I think you should do. And I'm going to mail you these samples. And then from there, these trades are going to come in and they're going to say to you that, like, here, this is what it's going to look like. And for me, like, that's just as rewarding as having someone close on a home, is seeing someone that helps my business help one of my clients. You know what I mean? So we've been really like doubling, tripling down on our local businesses. So we've been super focused on that. But that's been the big difference for me, is just being home. I'm not. I unfortunately not yet. We don't have kids, so I don't have that entertainment. I have this cat, and this is about as entertaining as she is.
That's
So
funny.
she comes in and watches while I do these. Uh, but aside from that, that's the big entertainment. Now of course she's like, "Hey, what are you doing?"
Yeah.
No, but that's what we're trying to do, is just highlight our local business owners and make sure our clients know that we have the people that they need, and make sure that the business owners that we have in our neighborhood have the people that they need too. So
Yeah. No, it's funny. I do the same thing, and I've reached out to some business owners, and I don't think it's like people don't believe that people really want to help out, not just now, but in general, right?
you just need to have proof of concept. You need to get one person so that then you can show it to the next person and be
Yeah.
like, this is what I did. And that's what we did. I mean, it was totally new to our neighborhood. We went out, and this is a year ago, before any of this happened, and said, hey, like, this is what we want to do. It's kind of weird, but we want to interview you as the business owner. And once we did that, it just turned into, like, now I can pick up the phone and say, hey, I want to try this. Are you up for it? And everyone's up for it, just because we did it once, and they saw what happened with the business down the street, and they're like, okay, like, yeah, we'll try it too. Right now, I would say any business that's not turning down free free publicity is crazy.
Yeah.
It, if a realtor that's watching this isn't reaching out to their local pizza place, the one, like the one you go to every day,
Right.
the place across the street that you get your milk and eggs,
Yep.
the restaurant that like they're closed right now, but like they have a Facebook page. Reach out to them on Facebook and say, "Hey, I'm doing this, and I hope that you're here on the other side of whatever's going on." If you can do that, they're going to buy in. And what's most important for your clients is the community. Like we're not selling houses. We are at the end of the day, like that's what we get paid to do, but
Yep.
we're selling communities. You're selling a feeling, you're selling a community, you're selling just an aura. It's not just a piece of property. It might be for those that sell like land or commercial, whatever. But for
Sure.
me, it's like when someone comes in, we call it a home and lifestyle analysis. And it's really simple. It's like, how do you use your house? How do you use your neighborhood? And once we have that conversation, it takes about 10-15 minutes, but we can pretty much at that point say, hey, I think these would be like three really great communities that you would fit into. So once we do that, it's like, okay, well now we're selling a community. We're not selling a specific house. Like, yeah, their new home will be in that community, but they've found that and we're ready to go.
Yeah.
So it narrows it down so much faster.
Yeah. No, you're right. It is. There's a lot more to real estate besides 123 main streets for sale. I'm going to open a door for you,
For
and we're
sure.
going to write an offer on it or what have you. There's everything else that comes in with helping, whether it's understanding schools, understanding bars and restaurants, boutique shops, whatever it is, like you said, the lifestyle that you're looking for. And I'm not going to steer you into whether or not this is a great city for you. Just letting you know why people come here. You know, this
Right.
city people go to for this reason. This city people go to for that reason. But there's all those things that you're looking for. Of course, there's restaurants. Of course, there's a bookstore or a CVS on the corner. Yes, all those things are in everywhere. What is it that you're looking for, so we can help find you the right location? And what's the budget? Because sometimes the right location might not meet the
Well,
budget.
that's the needs, bedrooms, bathrooms, budget, and then like, pets, laundry. Like those are the big needs. Lifestyle is how do you use it? Do you want an open concept? Do you like to go out and be able to walk to your local restaurants? Do you want to be close to the train? Do you like to cycle? Like, do you need to be close to that? Do you need a gym nearby? So that's why we say needs and lifestyle. It's the questions that any real estate professional should be asking, but we've just compacted it into a really like nice, presentable, like, here, what do you need? What's your lifestyle like? So
Yeah. Is there anything that you wanted to plug, or personal channels or Instagrams or anything like
I
that?
mean, I'm always glad to plug anything, and I'm glad you said that because my wife just texted me from a room over and said, "Who wants to listen to you for this long?" Um, you can find me at Eric J. Rollo on Instagram. But moreover, you can find my team at Team Rollo underscore Boston on Instagram. And then Facebook, if you do facebook.com/Rollo ROLLO. So like the candy, but double the fun because we have double the L's. So ROLLO. You can find us on Facebook there. And I genuinely, not generally, I genuinely appreciate the opportunity to come on with you, Joe. I really appreciate you asking me.
Yeah, well, I'm certainly glad you came, and that you brought a beer, and it was local, and all those things. And it's great to hear about other markets. There's some negatives that are happening right now, and we have to talk about them. I love hearing everything else that's going on. I think it's important that people know what's happening in other markets. In Michigan, people sometimes don't like to admit this, but what's happening in especially bigger markets. I've talked to a couple people in California, person in Florida, you're in Boston. If all these people said that everything's collapsing and it's like doomsday here, guess what's going to happen in Michigan? It would be the same way. But if everybody's saying it's doing good, then guess what's going to happen in Michigan? It's going to be the same way. I mean, we have different reasons for different markets, and we have different businesses and all that stuff. But businesses go together, and that's why I'm talking to other business people. that
Right.
know about real estate. So it's really important. I'm super, happy and excited that, you and some other folks have been willing to do this. I'm glad that you spent an hour. Tell your wife, Joe Muck is the person that wants to hear from you for an hour, if nobody else. And on that note,
Hopefully, there's more people out there.
I think so. So far, we're early on, some decent response, and we'll keep it going. And I think one of the beauties of recording and putting it out there on multiple platforms is that I've come across stuff that are 3 years old, and then suddenly I'm a fan and I'm listening to everything on there.
For sure.
Everything. So hopefully we'll be the same way, and we'll be more famous. So, but the purpose is education, not fame.
I
And
was just going to say, I'm not trying to get famous. I'm just trying to help people.
that's
So,
right.
and I hope that you and I have helped some people tonight, Joe.
I think so. And if nothing else, I guess we've helped each other. And I really do appreciate it. Cheers to you, sir.
Cheers.
We'll talk again sometime soon.
Sounds good. Thanks, Joe.
Thanks.